Welcome to this edition of Midday Mentors. I'm Richard Pharro, the CEO of APM Group International, and I'm here today talking to Jean-Christophe Barth, who is the founder and executive director of an organization called WAPPP, which is very active in the world of PPP projects and people. So welcome, Jean-Christophe. Would you like to say a few words about yourself and what led you to set up WAPP and what is its mission?
Thank you very much, Richard. It's a pleasure to share our purpose with you. WAPP is the World Association of Public-Private Partnership Units and Professionals, a non-for-profit association founded in 2018 in international Geneva. And we very much are about bringing PPP professionals together to learn from each other. It doesn't matter if they are civil servants working with a PPP unit or consultants or in academia. We think it's important that they can meet in a neutral environment to exchange best practices and promote public-private partnerships to make them more successful, to ensure that we can deliver value at the end of the day. And this is very much our purpose.
So you're based in Switzerland. The UN is also quite active in Switzerland. I understand it has quite a big office in Switzerland, and it has a series of sustainability goals. How does the work of WAPP relate to the sustainability agenda from the UN?
So WAPP advocates an SDG-driven approach to public-private partnerships, which means that we look at the United Nations 2030 agenda, which is the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, and the 17 development goals. Actually, goal number 17 is the one that relates to all the other 16 sustainable development goals because it says partnerships. And then if we drill down, there's different levels, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And the sole custodian to this day of goal number 17.171 is the World Bank Group. Quite amazing. And what the World Bank Group does is measure how much infrastructure public-private partnerships are actually being done. And then there's this social component, which today nobody is really looking into, which is also on the plate of the World Bank Group. And we're saying it's very important to combine these two and come up with solid metrics, because only if we measure can we see the impact. Now, here in Geneva, yes, we have the European headquarters of the United Nations organization, and there is the Economic Commission for Europe also, which is developing an impact assessment tool specifically to measure the impact of people-first public-private partnerships. So members of our association are also closely associated with that effort in trying to come up with a framework where you can actually measure and make meaningful metrics to see how public-private partnerships can deliver value and be measured against the objectives.
Jean-Christophe, it's only recently that I've started to hear this phrase, people-first public-private partnership. Could you elaborate? I mean, what has changed? Surely people are always at the heart of a public-private partnership investment and development. So why the emphasis now on people first? Has anything significantly changed, or is it just a matter of emphasis?
It's very much a matter of perspective. If you say people first, you look into how can the beneficiary, the people, be at the core of what we think is right in terms of sustainable development. If you leave that out of the equation, you simply do classic project finance. I'll say it a bit provocatively, the Anglo-Saxon value for money approach. We have seen where it led us. The largest economies in Europe have said bye-bye to that project finance concept in terms of PPP financing. And today we're looking into more, I'd say, an enhanced framework that wants to deliver value for people, or as other people like Dr. Peñalver, Domingo Peñalver, who is also a member of WAPP, has done research on that, and he has come up with a financial model that can help us to do value for future generations also. So it's very much about building sustainable infrastructure PPPs that continue to deliver value, that are, if you want, in a way, regenerative. And that's very important. The phrase people first public-private partnerships comes from the forum of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe Working Party on Public-Private Partnerships. They have dubbed it people first, but it's true, if you're not familiar with this jargon, it's difficult to understand what's really behind. So it's maybe saying SDG-driven PPPs is probably easier to understand.
No, I really like the way that you've explained that. I think putting the person, the citizen at the heart of an infrastructure development, an investment, to make sure it's actually fit for purpose, seems to be a really good thing. It's surprising it hasn't always been the case. But I do understand the, to use your phrase, the Anglo-Saxon approach. Value for money, in my experience, always results in lowest price. And people struggle to explain greater value than lower price. So it's really good to hear that. But WAPP lives in a world where there's lots of organizations involved in public-private partnership. You mentioned the World Bank Group. You know, there's other international bodies around the world that have an interest in this. Why did you think you had to set up WAPP? You know, what was it? What was the hole, the gap that you saw that your innovation, your inspiration led you to establish the organization?
We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. There's a lot of very meaningful organizations, and WAPP is right in the middle of it in International Geneva. We believe they are all very important, and we see WAPP more as a connector, as the glue, the facilitator between these different organizations that all have a serve a good cause and are delivering value in their field. What we saw was missing is there is no, say, home for PPP professionals so far. And the forum from which WAPP emerged at the United Nations Commission for Europe and the Working Party there is excellent to discuss policy recommendations, define standards. There are very knowledgeable people flying in from all parts of the world for 2 or 3 days, twice a year, to advance with that agenda. And what I found a little bit sad is that all this good spirit, all these good vibes that you were encountering during these 2-3 days seminars was interrupted for a period of 6 months. And I said, we need to try to create a bond where these PPP professionals can stay connected with each other beyond their actual work stream. And so this is how we basically came up with the idea of connecting public-private partnership units. We know they're organized very differently around the world, so that they can learn each other, network with each other, meet in an organization that is apolitical, that is with a governance that is wholly membership driven, so that there is not a member state who says, I prefer not to work with this party, and that is inclusive to people who are consultants in PPPs, who are companies that want to deliver PPP projects, and governments that are also in need of public-private partnerships in order to fulfill their wishes for their communities.
So within those meetings, in those conversations, I come from a construction background, and my history in construction, through normal procurement, it's always been adversarial. There's always been the promoter or the client and the contractor. Within those working groups, do you find there is common ground between promoters and contractors who are genuinely wanting to work together to do things better, to add greater value, to make a difference? Or does that only happen for the 3 days they're together, and when they leave the room, they revert to type and an adversarial approach?
I think there's a very large degree of interdependency. One cannot thrive without the other. And it's important that they learn to get to know each other better, their interests, their needs. Sometimes there are hidden needs. We know that people change, project realities change, a project life cycle, especially if you talk about a public-private partnership infrastructure project, can vary a lot between the inception and the delivery of the project after maybe 15, 20, or 25 years. And the whole trick with all this is to ensure that there is a good mindset on both sides, to understand that both have the obligation to deliver, not for their own interest only, but also to the interest of the beneficiaries for whom this infrastructure is being developed in the first place. And that's the people first focus again that kicks in there. So the platform allows these people to meet in a non-competitive environment outside of a public tender. In a public tender, you're very limited in the ability to exchange, to negotiate, because then we're in a very well-monitored procedure that is quite rigid. And that's why it's important that all these actors, no matter from which sector they are they academia or private sector or public sector, meet in a space that is non-confrontative, non-competitive, where we don't do actual transactions also. That's very important to preserve this space. But yes, transactions can start from there if people meet with a similar mindset and want to do something together, and that drives our SDG-driven ambitions. That's in a nutshell what we can do to help promoters and contractors to improve the delivery of PPP initiatives.
And clearly, PPP is only one way of delivering some of these infrastructures. There are a number of other contractual arrangements that can be established. Do you have any zealots within the group that it must be PPP? PPP is the only way to go, or do you find there's a much more open conversation about different ways of delivering the requirement of a people-first infrastructure development?
I would say no, it's not a magic formula for public procurement. Clearly, sometimes there are better adapted ways, and it's important that we first define what are we talking about. If we speak about people-first public-private partnerships, and especially what is a real PPP? Is it, again, the simple procurement of an infrastructure? Or do we go beyond and actually speak about a concession type model where it's either going to be user financed or paid by the public authority? There are a lot of technicalities involved in there, and this is why there is a need to upskill and to reskill constantly. It's lifelong learning, if you want. And I think the CP3P program is one very important modules to ensure that there is, the proper skills when you deliver PPPs. And then there's also the importance of having a network of PPP professionals who may have encountered similar situations in their career and whom other people may benefit from. And so I think it's very complementary there to have a platform like WAPPP that helps to have superior results in how we can execute these PPP projects and deliver SDG-driven sustainable infrastructure.
So is membership open to organizations and individuals that are learning, that organizations that may be new to PPP, or an individual that is starting out on a career and wants to learn more about it and to engage with that, to find mentors and coaches from among the membership? Is that something that is on offer to individuals and to organizations?
Yes. WAPPP offers two types of memberships. One is for institutionals, PPP units are obviously very important because they are the ones who then procure the infrastructure, and it's important that they have the necessary skills to do so. Public procurement is not an easy discipline, and things vary a lot, especially in our area. Right now, we have a huge challenge with the COVID-19 situation, obviously.
I was going to ask you about that. Do you think the membership, being as collaborative or collegiate as it is, will be able to help organisations understand, what could be solutions within COVID? Because I'd imagine most contracts that were drafted didn't allow for a global pandemic and the disruption that brings. So I just wondered, is that an item for discussion within the working groups on the agendas of WAPP?
Absolutely, it's the cross-cutting topic of our time, if I may say so. And how can we build forward better? I say build forward better because it's not building back.
Yes.
It's building forward better, what we need. And part of that is in the way we bring public and private to better find mechanisms to adjust, to ensure we avoid conflict, to ensure that we are able to actually deliver what is being promised also on the long term. And it needs to be in the most, the most transparent fashion possible, so that the beneficiaries, again, are the ones who actually benefit from that infrastructure that is being built. So I was just saying, and we have had an excellent webinar together, APMG and WAPPP, that was incredibly well received, where we explained these technicalities with the differences in force majeure, hardship clauses, fait du prince, or all these legal instruments around contractual interpretation and how to construe these clauses. And at the end of the day, what we see is nobody is a winner if he pulls all these clauses, and the project does not deliver what is intended to deliver. And especially if we look at it on a long-term perspective, things normalize and become very relative over a longer period of time. And even though we may have maybe 1 or 2 years now of heavy disruptions, terminating everything because of that wouldn't really advance anyone's cause, neither the contractor nor the state nor the users. And so it's important that we go about these things in a thoughtful manner.
And as you say, there is no benefit to any party for the promoter to take action against the constructor, the contractor, and put them out of business because they can't afford to pay the damages. That doesn't actually deliver anything, particularly for a people-first solution.
The important aspect is really how can the equilibrium be preserved. And there are tools out there in concession models how that can be done. And WAPP is very much about promoting this, explaining how practitioners can make use of that. And we'll be starting doing master classes on these very specific aspects. We already have the possibilities where experts can share their expertise in the WAPP blog. And we have our little newsletter, which is called the PPP Times, where we construe the 10 best PPP articles of the week, and it appears every Monday. And these are all resources that our members can benefit from.
Jean-Christophe, you set up WAPP back in 2018. So if we were having this conversation in either 5 years' time or in sort of 8 years' time, so you're coming up for your 10th anniversary, if you're looking back into your first 10 years of founding WAPP, running WAPP, what would be the one thing you would like to look back and say, I'm glad I achieved that? What would be the thing that you would want on your tombstone in terms of your success with this organization?
My hope is that we're able to create the home of PPP professionals, where we know what a PPP professional is 10 years from now. similar to what WIPA, which is the World Association of Investment Promotion Agencies, has been able to do with investment promotion agents or officials. It's very similar for PPP professionals. We need to shape that profession. And I believe this is something that is a joint effort, and WAPPP offers to be the home of the PPP profession. Why? Because we are able to establish contacts from Bhutan to Ecuador, and we're able to have these virtual meetings between these large conferences where people can connect and stay in touch with each other, stay abreast about the latest development in the PPP world. And that is important because a lot depends on good public-private collaboration. And if both public and private decide to do things together, nobody can hold it back. I mean, we're able to do amazing things and to really shift mountains like this. So if you ask me, where do we stand 10 years from now? I think we will have strengthened the global cadre of the PPP profession for practitioners, and that they will have led the paradigm shift into sustainable public-private partnership procurement.
Jean-Christophe, it's a great vision. It's something we as APMG would really like to help you try to deliver. It's fantastic talking to you today. It was a great conversation. Thank you very much for sparing the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard, and everybody.